my varsity basketball coach always used to say, he would be like, listen, the second I stop yelling at you, that's when you need to be concerned, right? So there was a part of me that craved that feedback because it's like, it showed me he cared, he was there for me, and he wanted me to improve. And again, we lose that as adults. And I think once people discover, hey, accountability is the missing link, most people, they find it, they thrive with it. And some people, again, have these feelings. And one of the points I want to make is running away from those feelings or recoiling from those feelings is just kicking the can down the road.
Hello, Adam. Good to see you this week. And I'm excited because you've received an email from one of our precious clients that inspired this podcast. So why don't you share with us what it was exactly that this client sent to you?
Yeah, I love the email. It's a powerful reframe. And it's from a client named Jet. So she wrote, I don't see changes as uncomfortable. I see it as being accountable. Uncomfortable denotes a negative connotation. Uncomfortable meaning not deprived of, causing or feeling slight pain or remove, which are negative connotations. Uncomfortable and accountability are adjectives describing a noun. Accountable means being held to a higher standard. It means you take ownership as a result of your actions. It means having a state or being accountable or willingness to accept one's actions. Accountability is more of a positive outlook on things. It puts you in the driver's seat. It acknowledges you as the one that can take the reins and achieve. The accountability in this program is important. Taking pictures of everything you put in your mouth and sending it to your coach is a very accountable action. It makes you think. And then she goes on and on.
All right. Wow. I mean, she nails it, right?
Yes.
Accountability puts you in the driver's seat. I mean, who wouldn't want to be in the driver's seat? Right? Like when you were a kid, all you wanted to do was be in the driver's seat.
Absolutely.
Right? This is great. This is great. And I do think it's really, really inspiring. First of all, hot on the tails of our swap out those words podcast from last week, right?
Yep.
Like, all right, this isn't uncomfortable. This is accountable. What a fantastically positive way to reframe a hard moment.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I love that. And let's crack into it a bit more. I mean, at our very core, My Body Tutor provides what?
Accountability on a daily basis.
Right? We dish it up. Dish it up, right? And I think one of the things we witness a lot, people come to us, oh yes, it's the accountability piece that's missing. It's the accountability I need. It's the accountability I know makes all the difference in the world. Then they get into the program and what happens?
It makes them feel uncomfortable. It puts their feet to the fire, and it can create a lot of emotions they don't often feel, or emotions that they're trying to get away from. Emotions like guilt, feeling like they're not doing enough, all sorts of things. It holds your feet to the fire. I mean, that's what accountability does. That's why people say it's the missing link. But it's fascinating how sometimes for some people, when they get it, they don't necessarily love that feeling, or they're just not used to it.
Right. So let's jump on that. They're not used to it. That's all it really is, right? Like when something is new, when something is unfamiliar, when we're not used to it, it feels like
Right.
all the things, right? So I have a really cool analogy I want to throw out there. Accountability, when you first experience it, and to be clear, we're really talking about external accountability. To be accountable to yourself. I don't know. I haven't run into many who do that without help.
Yeah, I mean, most people, as Gretchen Rubin talks about, are obligers. Most people are not upholders. Very, very few people are able to keep a promise to other people and themselves. Most people are very good at keeping promises to other people, but not themselves.
Okay, so here is my analogy. Accountability, the first time you really confront what I believe is empowerment through accountability. It feels like touching a live wire.
Ooh,
Have you ever been shocked, Adam? Like, have you ever, where I teach at the gym, every once in a while, if I touch the music box, there's this big box with all this metal on it that holds all of our musical equipment. And there are these two plugs that I have to plug in. And every once in a while, if I do it in just the right way,
ooh,
I I get zapped.
yeah,
And it's like, whoo,
yeah,
like my whole body lights up, right? And I feel like if you are not used to accountability, if you've never experienced accountability, um, if you're not expecting accountability, even though when we sign up for this program, that's what we get, that's exactly what it feels like, right?
right.
Which, okay, so stay with me. Electricity is power. It is empowering to be held accountable. It is somebody saying, hey, this choice, that's, you chose that. That is powerful, right? And if we sit back and stay out of accountability or refuse ownership or responsibility, we're basically saying, nope, I'm powerless. I don't have any control. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to be in the back seat their whole lives,
Yeah,
buckled up, in your car seat, in your child seat. So that's my analogy. And I really think um, once we get used to the zap, understand it's coming, then we can start to learn to harness the power that comes from the zap, right? Like almost like a superhero that figures out, like, ooh, this is pretty cool. Like I can harness and use electricity in my life. Harness your power. So that's my analogy. I think it's pretty appropriate.
I love it. I love it. I think as kids, we all have accountability in our lives, whether it's through teachers, coaches, parents, right? But as adults, we don't have that anymore. We don't have that structure in place. And I think for many people, some people crave that accountability. They know they need that and they get it and they love it and they thrive with it. But for some people,
Hmm.
there's that rebellion in them that it just, they kind of have this reactance towards it, or they don't know how to handle it, right? They're not used to it. But if you can
Yeah.
learn to reframe it and realize that it is putting you in the driver's seat, and you feeling those feelings is a good thing, because what's the alternative?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's powerlessness,
Right.
right? It's powerlessness. Yeah.
And
Yeah. You got,
I'm sorry, go.
I was just gonna say, like, it's I mean, obviously nobody wants to be electrocuted.
Obviously.
I don't want to be electrocuted. But like I understand that those zaps aren't gonna kill me, right? And so like it's like, okay, like I can be okay that I had those feelings, right? I can be okay that I'm uncomfortable owning my stuff, owning my choices. And I think it's really, really helpful to have somebody on the outside helping you with this, right? Like one thing I tell our coaches all the time, I'm like, our job is to witness and then to reflect back, right? Witness as objectively as possible and then hold up that mirror,
Hmm.
right? And let our clients take a look. And then obviously like create like a really safe environment for that experience because it is jarring. Um, but like you said, like get excited about those feelings. Try to. It's invigorating, right? Like, woo,
Right.
exhilarating. So there's a lot of reframe available, I think.
Yeah, and it wakes you up, to continue with the analogy, because like the alternative is you're kind of in this autopilot, right? You're not driving, you're just kind of this in this everyday monotonous routine of, I call it like the no plan, right? And like if you're on a
Hmm.
no plan, you're just not caring, and that's no way to live either. I mean, that's clearly not what you want for yourself. So when you have that accountability, you're in the driver's seat now. You're no longer in autopilot. You know, we've talked about, this whole comfort crisis I believe we're all in. You're no longer comfortable because you're feeling these feelings and they can be
Mm.
uncomfortable. And instead of running away from them, instead of recoiling, instead of removing what's making you feel those feelings, dig into them. Talk with your coach about it. Talk with us about it. But to me, if we're trying to avoid comfort, which I think, as I stated in my case, the more comfort we seek, the faster we age. This is one of the best ways to feel uncomfortable in a good way, because ultimately, discomfort or accountability leads us to where we want to go.
Yes. I also want to ask you what you think, you know, when are times we like to be accountable, right? Like, I feel like accountability can't be like a pick and choose thing. Like, you're either learning to be accountable for everything or you're accountable for nothing. And I feel like sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too. I'm saying this for all human beings because nobody likes to be accountable for the things we think are bad.
Hmm.
But who's the first in line when something goes well in your life? Ooh, that was me. We got to own it all,
Right. Right.
right? And another reframe is like, understand that there's just different energies for different things, right? Like, something we really like, that's a different energy. We're feeling good about that. We own that. Something turned out the way we didn't like it, and it is something we need to own. It's just a different energy, right? So I think too, sometimes separating yourself from like good and bad feelings, and just calling them different energies can help. But I really feel accountability and ownership and responsibility is like a 100% like full-time
Yeah.
job. We don't get to pick and choose when we're accountable, or we're not totally standing in our power.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, it kind of reminds me of like when you're a kid, you feel like you do well in a test, you're excited to go to school and get your grade. And the times where you didn't feel like you did so well, you're kind of dreading it. You don't want that accountability. You don't want that feedback. Um,
Mm,
my varsity basketball coach always used to say, he would be like, listen, the second I stop yelling at you, that's when you need to be concerned. Right. So there was a part of me that craved that feedback because it's like, it showed me he cared. He was there for me and he wanted me to improve. Um,
hmm
and again, we lose that as adults. And I think once people discover, hey, accountability is the missing link, most people, they find it, they thrive with it. And some people, again, have these feelings. And one of the points I want to make is running away from those feelings or recoiling from those feelings is just kicking the can down the road, right? Because again, the alternative is you're on autopilot and you're just coasting, you're just drifting into where you are, right? You're just letting inertia take over. And that, is certainly comfortable, but it does not lead to satisfaction. It does not lead to happiness. Sometimes you got to go through the tough feelings in order to feel the way you really want to feel.
Yes. And I think this is a good point to remind people, like, accountability is something you get better at, right? Like, they're not always going to feel like that first shock, that first touch of the live wire. Eventually, you come to expect it, and you know that ultimately it's for your empowerment, it's for your betterment, right? So, maybe something to think about and to leave, the listeners and the watchers with today is like, look for ways you're accountable in your life for good, like for the quote unquote good things, the things you're excited to take ownership of, the things you're excited to say, I had the power over this, I created this. And then work to find one thing each day where you can accept accountability for the way something may have turned out differently than you had hoped or expected, and find the power there, like, and like, feel that jolt of electricity, feel what it feels like to touch that kind of ownership.
Yeah.
What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, eh, we want you to, leverage the program you're in now. And I always say, like, any worthwhile journey in life is going to have what I call FDR: fear, discomfort, doubt, and resistance, right? Those are uncomfortable feelings. And our most successful clients, when they feel those, they lean into it, and they talk with their coach about it, right? And when you're feeling those, lean into it, right? Don't recoil, don't hide, because again, you're just kicking the can down the road. So when you feel those feelings, use us. That is why I truly believe success is inevitable with our program, because we're there with you every step of the way, every day.
Yes, holding you accountable, right? Helping you learn to hold that power, to harness it, not to run from it,
Yep.
not to fear it. Yes, awesome. All right, what else do we need to say about this, if anything?
I think that's it. I love the reframe though of, it's not uncomfortable, it's being accountable. I mean, that is so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you think about all the areas of life where you have accountability built in, whether it's coworkers or your boss or your kids. I think it's always interesting when people, who travel for work, every now and then they find themselves in a hotel room alone, right? They don't have a spouse, they don't have kids. And for some people, not having those people around, it's like the wheels come off. They're like they're tempted to order room service, or they want to do like, And it's interesting how when we have people involved in our life, it makes such a difference. Um, so again, all this to say, use us, don't run from those feelings, and also realize what you're doing, right? So sometimes people will say, I feel very overwhelmed. Is it actually overwhelmed, or are you just running from those uncomfortable feelings that can be overwhelming because you're not used to dealing with those anymore?
Right. That first lesson in accountability, that first taste of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's what we're here for,
right, right,
to help you through it.
right.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
Well, I think that is um, that's all we got, and I think that's a really impactful, important lesson. So instead of stay uncomfortable, stay accountable, enjoy it, embrace it, and I can't wait to see how it, how and where it takes you.
Definitely. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Until then, take good care.